Okie dokie, hello adventurers of MacBook repairs. Tonight our quest is to try and fix a MacBook so we can get some gold. Because we all want gold. Gold! We need gold. Gold makes everything better. Hey Coda. First baby. What the hell? What is that meant to mean? Are you referring to your own? Oh, I see what you're saying. You're exclaiming. You're like, yeah, I'm first. Got it. A little bit slow. I'm too busy focused on other things. Hey, Gavel, PR, Six Girl, Andrew. Alright, let's just dig into this one. Now, I know we do plenty of 1466s, and quite frankly, we'll continue to do as many 1466s as what turn up because they're a good machine. In terms of if you want to do repairs for profit, then they're a good machine because most of the time you can fix them up without too much headache, and quite often you will be able to get plenty of spares for them. So yeah, and they don't have any exceedingly complicated things like the T2, and all the rework that you have to do on them is within reasonable skill levels, as it were. So it's certainly why everybody in the repair industry tries to grab as many 1466 repairs as they can. And they've probably got another 3, 4, maybe 5 years of jobs in them still. Okay, so there's no battery connected. That's probably intentional. Coda has a quick question. Well, give it a shot. Christian, you're having birthday shenanigans. Well, congratulations. What are you, 35 now? Ariston UK? Yes, it has been a while. Alright, let's plug this in, see what happens. Put the chipmunk in. Can't believe Lewis doesn't have a chipmunk. I'm going to have to send him a chipmunk. Or two. I saw him today trying to work out whether the CPU was running and things like that. And I thought, why don't you have a chipmunk, Lewis? See ya, DJ. Hi, DJ. You have to go to City Hall to pay your water and sewage bill. That's crazy. Even in this backwater town, I can do it online. Hey, Warren, Barry. Okay, let's see. We've got green light. Power comes up. 300 milliamp. We're probably not going to get a CPU life, which means this is probably a very dead CPU. Now, let's hope it's not a dead CPU. That'd be a very bad end to this so far exciting quest to repair a MacBook. Worked on a 1466 report, found corrosion around the backlight and SMC, replaced a bunch of components, ran a bunch of jumpers, but L5001 was damaged, found 3v3 US5 side. Would that cause intermittent booting? I would say you've probably got issues elsewhere. And okay, so this is I'd say maybe you got a component that still isn't sitting down properly, or you've got corrosion under a pad. That would be my guess, at least my first guess, without having to see more on the board. Okay, so we got everything. 300. Please do not. CPU is dead cold, so that's actually a hopeful sign. So we've got 300 milliamps being drawn. All the power rails are up, but the CPU is dead cold. I gotta admit, this one's a little bit different. Just had to be different. So it could be a short somewhere. So if we wanted to cheat, we could bring out the gym cam. Hey, civil up. We'll get this battery out, we'll get the board out, and we'll have a look. And it might be something visually obvious before we bother with anything else. Good evening, Arilla. Let's do our usual thing of graffitiing on their parts. At least by graffitiing on their parts, I will always know who they belong to. Yeah, Coda, it sounds sufficiently intermittent that it could be, you know, just a dodgy pad or connection somewhere. Did you reball, or did you redo the SMC, like reball it, or put a new one down? Riston, what are you doing? Day isn't very exciting. Pulling apart a 45 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery because the factory did a crap job of crimping the thermistors. Oh, so battery, right, okay. Huh. Super safe battery. Keeps going a little bit overboard. I actually had fun with my reflow oven, the others way for that thing that you can see behind me. I forgot that I got a zero crossing triac on it for the actual driving of the main triac. So you have a small triac being driven by the microcontroller, and that triac then effectively drives the main triac, which is switching the 10 amps or whatever. And the one that I've got in there is a zero crossing unit, which means it will wait until the voltage and current, or transitions through zero before it will actually activate the trigger pulse to the main triac. Now the reason why it does that is so that you don't get awful line noise happening, because if you switch a high power device, or relatively speaking, like we're talking 2000, 1000 watts, whatever, if you switch that while it's still going through a fair bulk of its the peak of the AC waveform, then the sudden off will cause all sorts of crazy noise and things like that, particularly if it's an inductive type load. So you have a zero crossing detector so that it waits until you get through that 0 point, and then it goes, okay, you're off. But the trouble is, if your zero crossing doesn't always work if you've got a certain type of load, and it may perpetually think that it never goes through that zero crossing phase. And that's what happened when I did some stuff with the oven. And luckily I was sitting there watching it, because I had a pair of 332 boards in there. And I was like, yeah, the temperature's going up still. The temperature's going up still. And then it dawned on me about 60 seconds later. That's like, this thing is not switching off because I was reading the controller panel, and the controller panel said off, as in no power to the oven. But it was obvious there was power going to the oven because I left the light on in the oven, as in I left the light bulb in there, and it was more than happily glowing away. That should have really been my first indicator. But then that wasn't enough, and nor was the rising temperature. But instead, what finally made me realize I was heading down a bad path was the fact that the heating rods started to get to red hot, like you actually see them glow. And it was at that point that I realized that I almost was going to F up. Unfortunately, because it's a big oven, and it was started out about 120, and it was getting up to about 155, 160. And I was like, oh crap, this thing's not turning off. So anyway, I managed to hit the main switch and all good. No real damage done. The plastic covers that are on the CPUs and the PCH, they were kind of a little bit singed, but nothing bad. Anyway, I saved that one. Otherwise that could have been a very sad story of a pair of 332s going down the gurgler. Hey Pedro. Now the way I can actually mitigate that risk is, there's a couple of ways. One way that I'm doing now, and that is to actually set the thermostat on the oven to say 160 or something like that. It's very inaccurate on the dial of the oven, but at least it is there as a fail-safe. So if for some reason my controller doesn't manage to turn off the oven, if it hits 160, it will kick out. The other way, which is probably the better way, is I actually have to have a thermal fuse in the oven, and so if it hits say 150, 160, it will go pop. Although they don't really pop, they're a little wax bead. Actually, they're an amazing bit of construction. If you look on the inside of them, you won't be able to cut them open and see it, but if you look at a cutaway of thermal fuses, it's an impressive bit of mechanical engineering. Yeah, so you can stick one of those in and that will save the day as well. Alright, so this is a 820000165. The Great Reveal. Oh, this one's gonna maybe require a little bit of brain work. Alright. Let's have a looky-loo. Jeffrey, I made it myself, which is why I knew I made the mistake when I put the zero crossing version in there. I have new boards coming next week, and naturally it's a complete redesign, which means I'm going to have a whole new set of bugs that I'm not going to be aware of. So that means instead of being able to set my oven and forget and walk away, I'm going to have to sit there and watch it for about, maybe a dozen times before I have the confidence in it to trust it to any real boards. The biggest problem I have, admittingly, is I'm not even sure if I've done my main side safely enough. Technically it may work, but I am worried about the safety of it. By the way, I cranked up the settings for the encoder on this today, so hopefully the actual recorded YouTube videos have a slightly better quality, because right now when I look at them after they're uploaded, they have that sort of like fixed layer that doesn't move until 5 or 6 frames after you've actually stopped moving. It doesn't resolve properly. It sort of cheats by not completely encoding it. So anyway, hopefully tonight when I go back and have a look at this video, the encoding will be better. The only way for me to really resolve this is to spend another $1,000 and get myself a better machine. And there we go. That's some nasty corrosion there. A bit of greenery on the field. This is probably going to make now the system crash, but we'll see. Because I'm going to have a look and see what that chip does. I know it's not backlight, or at least I don't think it is. Yeah, USB port power switch. Okay, that is possible that it could be causing the problem. Kind of unlikely, but possible. Because that does have PP5VS4. I say we take it off and see what happens, but there might be something else around. Relay, yeah, that was the other thing I was thinking of, is actually having a relay as a complete override. See, the thing is, I don't want to use a relay for the main switching, because the ovens will switch on and off about 50-60 times per session, and you'll burn your relays out pretty quickly if you do that. But I may decide to actually have a relay that starts at the beginning of the session and then will trip if it gets over a certain threshold as well. Warren, I've got a PT100 sensor, and the trouble is it knows it's getting too hot and it tries to signal that the tri-axis should switch off, but because I had the zero crossing in there, it wasn't able to, due to the nature of what I did. If I change it to a non-zero crossing detecting driver, then that will solve the problem. But it does mean I will get nasty sort of glitches on the household electrical lines. So I think the ultimate safe way to design this is to have a session relay. So you have a relay that will turn on at the beginning of the session, and if the temperature gets beyond a certain threshold, then it will actually be shut down to just terminate itself outright. Solid state relay really is the same thing. You're going to run into the same problem potentially as what I'm running into now, so I would actually be using a mechanical relay for the override. Because essentially what I am using now is a solid state relay. I'm just looking for something else. I'm not absolutely guaranteeing that USB switch corrosion is the cause. I suppose the easiest way for me is to measure the rails, eh? Let's see. Get that big fat cap up there, that will be the one I need. Yeah, Jeffrey, they will do 50 to 100,000 cycles, but the trouble is, it's amazing how quickly that will actually happen. Like if I do, say I do 3 sessions a day, 3 cook sessions a day with the boards, and they do say, I don't know, 50 whatever cycles, then within a year you have burned that relay out. So yeah, and you've got to consider that the existing controller that I have, I've had that for 15 years now, and it's still going. So 1 year versus 15 years, you can sort of see why I'm not going to go with the mechanical as the main thing. And that's not shorted. Okay, so what could be messing up there? Hey, Steve K. Yeah, most half-decent mechanical relays will be rated in the tens to hundreds of thousands of cycles. Derate by 50% just by default, and like I said, you'll be wearing it out within a year. Now that there, on the other hand, that looks like a real short to me. You can see that the capacitor has cracked through. Hey, Roz Electronics. I didn't hear anything. Anyone hear that? Was there a short? Is that a short? At least I'll be able to wire up I can do it, wire up the mechanical relay externally. I'll just put it after the fuse. There's a bit of corrosion down there, nothing too bad. Oh no, okay, it's just getting worse now. Our clock chip has been damaged with corrosion. So yeah, the clock chip's got a bit of corrosion, we'll have to replace that. It's not really something you want to mess with, because if things go wrong with that and you get a bad voltage out on your 3v3 RTC, you can potentially damage the PCH, which I really hope hasn't happened already. I don't think it has. I'm pretty sure that... Oh, wow. Okay, yep. Oh, okay, there's like a 6 or 7 thing. Yep, alright, this is so much for that thinking it was originally going to be a dead easy job. Yep, fat chance of that. Well, this is a good beginner's board. Why not set up ESP8266 at wireless monitoring? Because, Travis, I prefer these things to be intrinsically safe as much as possible and not require any human intervention. So henceforth, having the controller with things like thermal fuses, having the thermostat on the oven itself set to about 160, and having a mechanical relay that will get tripped like it's basically a self-kill switch. As soon as that relay detaches, there's no way for it to bootstrap itself until I actually activate it again. So things like that. Remote sensing is all nice, but I prefer the device itself to be intrinsically safe. It's good practice, Eric. It's good practice. Yeah, remote sensing's nice. I've got no problem with that. And I don't need to use an ESP, whatever. I have got a couple of those units around. I've got a serial port on this one anyway. If I wanted to, but in the end I never bothered. And that's damaged. Oh man, and the cap's obviously there. Yep, alright, we're going to go from right to left to right. Yep, this is my left. Hey, Catherine. Yep, this is going to be a marathon. Boy. I think that one there just needs to flux and boil. That there needs replacing. It's probably going to be easy for me to just fix a donor board instead. That is true, Riston. No SMC involved in this one, much to the disappointment of several people here. I'm also going to try out a new awl tonight. I found this in a knife kit that I had for many years. I kind of think I might want to try and bring that tip down a little more, but I suspect it's not going to be a hardened tip, so maybe if I get one of those blow torches or something, I can make the tip harder and get it down to a finer point. Yeah, it's not bad, but yeah, it's not really... It's okay for 0201s, but it's not going to be any good for 0105s. That is a good example as well of why you need to check the entire board. I can tell you now that probably if I remove that shorted cap back on the backlight driver, that this board would probably come to life. But I can also tell you that if we do that, it will probably die soon after with a dead CPU or something like that. Mostly because all the rest of the junk that's here will very promptly cause it to run into some issue, and then I'll no longer have a board that's even worth repairing. Hey Toast Tech. Still not used to that Aten hot air station cooling, shutting itself down. It gives that whistle, and I think it's one of the cats meowing on the outside. My wife's ignoring me. Oh well, that's not a first. I used a Stupic clip for diagnostic ports. I used a clip on the right, yes, no, I refuse to use clips for that reason. Particularly if it's something like SO8 type grab. They always have a horrible tendency of slipping off. Now the fur kids, well, numerous. That's about the best I can say about them right now. I've got a lot of work ahead of me on this property. I'm not sure if I'm really up to it for a while. It might have to wait till Christmas. It's not the money that's an issue, it's just me having the energy and time. Okay, I mean, money is slightly an issue, but not that much of an issue. It's not the primary inhibiting factor, put it that way. I gotta learn to stop grabbing multiple parts at once. Jeffrey, the main reason for the switch is simply because the old one was starting to get... it wouldn't keep up the heat well enough. And that's simply because it needs a new element on it, but I don't have one on hand. And I couldn't get one here quick enough, so I just picked up... and I always wanted a backup station anyway, so I picked up the Atom. That'll be an opportunity to try and see what the fuss is about. And they seem pretty good. And I think this chip's on backwards. I don't know what to trust. Oh great, I'm out of... I'm pretty sure I can see dot in the right place, bottom or top left there. We'll find out. Steve K, you did physical work today. What sort of physical work did you do? Is that sitting up in your chair or something? This cap may not be damaged here, but it's in a bit of a bad area, so I am going to want to get rid of it. I would have preferred to have been able to do other work around first and get this whole area heated up, but it seems to be the only thing in this zone that needs the rework. Yep, that's right, Paul. Just short out the cap next to it. Why not? Why not indeed? See if we can find that replacement. It was that one there. So how's the quality tonight on the YouTube? Is it tolerable? Can you see the... if I move the board like this, does it seem to take several seconds before the image sort of becomes clear again? The problem is when I move the board, it would degenerate to a very low quality JPEG for a while. Perfect, good, great, fantastic. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. I'm still going to get myself an i7 for it. And then I can move up to 60 frames per second. I'll be staying 1080, but it'll be nice to get up to 60. We've got to replace this as well. Yeah. Yeah, I'm only doing 30 at the moment, 30 at HD. Yeah, Barry, 1080, that's what I'm at. It should be going out there at 1080, 30 frames per second. And I'm using 6600 kbit per second. So it's nice to see that my ISP is actually managing that for a change. Catherine should try a refresh. Colonel Panic, welcome. There's a bit of junk in there. And I've also got to get around to cutting these nozzles down. They're just too long. I did grab the right one, did I not? Yep, got the right one. Hey, an E555. Yeah, Electro Rep, didn't see you get in there. And Flatlander, didn't see Flatlander. And B-Dog. Yeah, looks like I've been busy fixing things rather than watching the chat. Excuse me. That was tonight's stir fry, trying to enter into the discussion. So this is the RTC clock chip. Very important chip. Usually the way we see these fail is, well, one of the symptoms you get when they fail is you get the quarter fan spin. The fan will just sort of like pulse once or twice and that's it. But in this particular case, that was not to be. I suspect mostly because we are being dominated by that spectacularly shorted, physically cracked cap on the backlight. So we've still got to get over to that backlight section, but you know, bit by bit we'll get there. And I'm not even bothering to test these sections because I already know that they have to be replaced, and I already know that because it is the that cap on the backlight that's shorted, there's no point trying to do anything else. Did I just lose that pad? No. Damn it. No. This is a cluster job. Yeah, Steve, no, that's as high as I go. Yep. Well, Travis, you know how you can fix up that not streaming thing? You can start streaming. And I gotta tell you, we all start somewhere. I'm sure most people have seen my early videos. They're dreadful at the best. To be fair, most of them were done using some really shonky cameras and quite a lot of limitations, to be honest. The cameras that I first started on, they were not even proper video recording cameras. They had like a 20-minute limit on the video recording, and that was 720p. And I had to make sure I was always on top of that 20 minutes, because otherwise, and unfortunately as it did happen, I would keep going for too long and I'd lose the footage, and I'd basically have to scrap the whole video. And then the audio problems came up, and no. It's yeah, but it's one of those I guess you say, what do they call it, rite of passage or whatever. We all go through it. At least these days, getting equipment is cheaper. Like, I think I started 6-7 years ago now, or at least for this sort of work. My first videos are actually probably 15 years old now. So yeah, I've been doing YouTubing for a long time, just not a lot. And most of my earlier stuff was all about model aircraft, so that's why you don't really see it. And the stuff that I did back then was, I had a Sony DV cam, and then I had a, fortunately at least, I had a what was it, Firewire 400. So I had a Firewire card in the machine, and I would upload my Sony videos. That was probably started around about 2002, 2003 for those. I don't know where most of those videos are anymore though. Yeah, interlaced, that was also it. It was horrible. I used a program back then called Main Actor. It was pretty good. It cost me, I think, about $450 US. It was the only thing I could find for Linux at the time that was actually tolerable. And by tolerable, it still crashed every 30 seconds on a good day, but it did work. And I gotta say, I haven't actually found anything available for Linux that has the same feature set, at least at the same level of ease. I mean, we do have DaVinci and all the rest of it, but yeah. Is there a pilot channel? Wow, yeah. No, just more of a crashing channel. Well, there's one very shorted cap. Firewire was very good. And I mean, it still is good in many ways. And even though the numbers for Firewire, like Firewire 400 versus USB 2, even though the numbers sort of made it look like Firewire was slower, it, for bulk transfer, it was always much faster than USB. There wasn't really a lot of real crash and burning, Steve. Even though back then I was using electric airplanes. I was doing electric airplanes from the early 90s. Back then people were like, that's the dumbest thing ever, why would you want to do that? Yeah, it's why on earth would you put an electric motor in a plane and try to fly it? It's so stupid. And now it's pretty much the dominant way people fly. I mean, you look at all your drones and, well, basically anything you can buy. I mean, you can still get glow motor planes, certainly, and they have their advantages. But for the most part, no one really bothers to buy them anymore. Apart from the smell, if you like the smell. Methanol smells great, nitromethane especially. Steve, now that I've got the timeout set on the handle, I'm much happier with it. I do have to cut the nozzles down though, they're just too long and they're irritating the living daylights out of me. I'm missing my shield. Where the hell's my shield gone? Probably some agents took it. Ah, well, it's not the one I'm after, but it will do. Yeah, that is really a disgustingly dirty plate. I probably don't really need to do this. As in protect it. But I genuinely don't like handing back to customers things that are melted too much. Not if I can help it. So I really want my other shield. I don't know what I've done with it. I was a fool and I moved things around in the office, as usual. That was because I was working on the oven, so I just had to shift everything around so I could get some space. Because the oven took up so much space, it was just incredible. Suppose I can just make another one. Just point the arrow away from it. You know, that's a surefire way of making sure that I'm going to have problems. Because I'll get distracted by something, and then I will go, oh, Miles said I can just turn the hot air away from it, and then what do you know, I've got a melted connector. And are you going to come over here and fix it? No, you're not. You're just going to sit there and you're going to laugh. I mean, it's not a big problem for me to replace the LVDS connector. I just don't want to have to if I don't have to. Oh, come on, I pressed the button. And don't forget I've got the USB or... not the USB, the SD slot there. Yeah, the SD slot's going, hey, what's going on here, buddy? Double captain, no thanks. No, I much prefer to use a metal shield. Captain tape does work if you can get an air gap between it and the device you're protecting. But all too often people put the tape on directly onto the device and there's no air gap. And the captain tape basically does sweet jackal. You want the air gap, that's the key. It's like a few years ago, Jester Jones made a comment about, you know, if you put a piece of captain tape on your finger and you blow hot air on it, you know, you're immediately going to burn your finger. And yeah, she was right on a principle there about the idea, but the captain tape can still protect you, but like I said, you just got to have that air gap to keep the air from blowing onto whatever it is that you're protecting. And the captain tape, just through the fact that it can tolerate the high heat, will at least maintain integrity so that the hot air doesn't just blow through it. Ah, that's a train wreck. Train wreck, but it actually worked out. And we didn't melt our connector, and the SD isn't too bad. See, what's not helping is with the nozzle being that long on the atom at the moment, it means I come in at a much shallower angle, which means that the hot air is going to blow a further distance relatively without being impeded. So until I can cut that nozzle down, or until I do cut that nozzle down, then this is always going to be a bit of a concern. Alright, I think we're done. Eagle of sugar. I think that's a big fat no for that. I don't replicate for anybody. I do not spawn any children, thank you very much. My genetic lineage ends with me. I'm just going over the board again, make sure that I haven't had a brain fart, as it were, and forgotten something that I saw before. That resistor looks a little bit dodgy, I might just touch it up either side. Yeah, very kind is okay. No, I am not neutered. Oops. I haven't been that bad yet. By the way, I've started to notice on some of the newer 165 boards that this chip here is now, it looks more like the SMC than this combo exposed green with wafer on top. It caught me out the other day. I was like, what am I doing looking at this SMC down here for? And then I realised it was the Broadcom camera chip just being repackaged in a different way. Okie dokie. I think it's time to test. I think the biggest problem with me when it comes to replication is that I'm too greedy with my own time. The idea that the investment of time into them is pretty much going to be a one-way process, and I'm going to miss out on doing all these other things. Yeah, I'm very selfish in that respect. I'm probably a little bit too selfish, I suppose. But it's definitely a trait I have. Alright, let's see if this works. Oh, Steve, yes, that's totally the reason, yeah. Okay, green light. Okay, we got all this before. We want to see if we get a blinky now. Hopefully we get a green blink and we don't just have a dead CPU, because I should have checked the resistance of the CPU before I even started. Oh well, I'm an idiot. What can you do? Oh, this is not looking good. Oh, there we go. Green light. We're alive. Just made me panic a little bit. Kind of like when you're a few days overdue. Yep. That's a way to make you panic. Travis, you raised 3. For some reason I perceive you as being a bit younger, but the fact that you've raised 3 kind of throws that out the window. I suppose we should plug it in and make sure it actually gives us a screen and things like that. And the resistance of the CPU, these ones should be around about 12, I think, from memory. Switch over to resistance mode. Eight and a half, okay. But yeah, it's distinctly well above 0. 8.5, okay, this is a 1.4. Just going to check on the schematic and see what I've got listed for that. Damn you, mouse, come on, don't peeve me off tonight. Okay, so it's interesting. So we've got 15, 14. I'm wondering if it's because the board's hot, I think. Take that out. See what happens when we cool it down. There it goes, yeah, now that it's cooled down, we're up at, 13, 14, which is around about the mark that we have on the board view in the schematic. It's like with the open board data. So yeah, they 15 ohms measured on a previous board, and that was a 1.64 gig. And this one, what was this one? This is a 1.64 gig. I'll double check that. Yep, 1.64. So yeah, we're pretty much on the mark. So that can, oh yeah, that's right, we're going to test to see if it actually does give us a display. Just put all the broken parts in there. Just in case someone decides, I don't believe you actually replaced those parts, you need to show me the broken parts. And I can go, there's the broken parts. How do you like them bananas? Michael Billman, what's happening there is all I've done is I've scanned the board. Like I put this board into a flatbed scanner and scanned it about 1200 dpi, and then I spent probably a little bit too long, half an hour, just adjusting the scan to fit the board view to make most of the points line up. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's pretty good. And it is entirely optional for me to show that image. It's not that efficient though when you're trying to save CPU cycles. Particularly if you start panning it around a lot or whatever, because obviously scaling and moving that 1200 dpi JPEG around is not the most trivial sort of thing. It is going through OpenGL, so it does do a fairly optimal job, but it still is extra power. Now, Arista and UK, I will get occasional people, they don't directly ask in the sense of show me the parts, but they will sort of infer that they're a little concerned that I kind of duped them or something like that. It's like, well, that was a little too easy for you to repair. I need you to prove that you did repair it. So, fine. And really, it's a bit silly because, I've replaced 6, 7 parts there, and people probably think, okay, that's value for money. But a lot of the time, it's just one little pad or one resistor or one tiny little piece that's out of fault. In fact, most of the time, when it's just one little piece, that is when it's actually the hardest to find. It's like some annoying little under-corroded pad that had no indications of where it could be, and you spent 6 hours to find them. You go, oh well, it's just a resistor. So it can lead to issues if people do want to start taking that path, because the way they perceive the value of the work you did is not necessarily the way that the value truly is actually generated. And that's why you basically just sort of say, I'll fix it for this much, and then you try to stay away from too many queries like that. Sometimes you do get a really easy winner. Sometimes you do, but I'll tell you what, it's rare more than it is not. Hey Greg, morning to you. Show them video. Yeah, sometimes even that. Like I said, if it's me just replacing a shorted cap, it's going to be like, well, that didn't take you long at all. And then, of course, you've got to go through the whole, well, you're not paying for the minutes, you're paying for the years, that sort of discussion. Hey, Fast Packet, good evening to you. VDiv, sometimes it can, sometimes it makes it worse. Like I said, if you open it up and you go, oh yeah, I can see that, shorted cap on PP Bus G3 Hot, and you pop the cap off and it all runs. Yeah, that's not going to go down well when they see that they've got a $300 bill. Yeah, Robert could, exactly. You just sort of keep it straightforward, or the board is fixed, the board is not fixed, some parts are replaced. Try not to go into details, because details lead to more questions for more details. One begets the other, and it just becomes a losing sort of situation. Most of the time, though, after a while, you kind of get savvy on the sort of people who are going to present that kind of a personality to you, and you can usually flag the job and walk away from it before it even gets opened up. Alright, so everything looks like it's running. Let's run the valley test. Gorilla, especially when you hand them 0201 or 0105 parts, and they're like, where are they? And you're like, they're in the bag, they're right there. I'm like, I can't see anything there. And so put your glasses on, maybe have a microscope, because they're there. It's not to mock the customer, but it's just, those parts are legitimately very difficult to see. And they do look like dust in a bag. Alright, so we're doing 25 frames per second on this, so yeah, everything's hunky-dory. Temperatures are running up nicely. We're in the 100 plus for the CPU and the GPU, so that's good. Fans running at 3000. Yeah. Did I plug the camera back in? Yep, camera's good. Microphone and speaker are good. Alright, I think we can call this one a fix. That can go into the ultrasonic tank. And another successful repair. So, yeah, it is a bit funny that they're fine to run at 100, but yeah, they do seem to survive at that. As frustrating as it can get for some people. So, anyway, I am out of here. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Maybe tomorrow I'll have something different. I do have plenty of other jobs in the queue, but some of them are the ones that I sort of need to think a little harder about. And no offense to any of you, but trying to manage a YouTube discussion and also do the repair, particularly if it's sort of a complicated one, can sometimes be a little bit too much for me. So I don't quite have that throbbing brain that other people have, but I'll just sort of try and proportion it where I can. So I'm out of here. You'll take care. See you next time.